Today on the show, we talk all things rugby, as per usual, talking about Ontario, the Marshall, the Owl. But we're also talking about how my excursion went at the weekend down at Sunnybrook, and that's all in this episode. Welcome back to Pitch Eye with myself, Sean Ryan Radio, the podcast dedicated to grassroots rugby across Canada. And today we are having a look at the Marshall, the Owl. We're on a bye week this weekend, so there's no fixtures to predict. So we're going to look at the teams, look at what needs to be done in the next two games or the next seven games, depending on which league we're talking about, as well as how my excursion went at the weekend. If you're watching on YouTube, this episode is going to be a little bit more visual than in previous episodes. We are going to do some screen sharing. We are going to show you what's on my screen in terms of showing the results, showing the game, showing the standings and stuff like that to give you a bit more visual representation. People on Spotify, you're going to get the same experience regardless, all on the audio waves. So I got to make sure I sound fantastic for you guys, as per usual. But that's all happening in this episode. We're going to be talking about the Owl to start with, as per usual. Um, and we're going to have a look at the Premiership to start. So we'll look at the fixtures because we had some interesting ones. I know we only have three games at the weekend, but we had some very, very interesting results. Starting with the top one on the screen right now is the Oshawa Vikings versus Bradford Harlequins at the weekend, 26 to 52. So Bradford Harlequins winning away from home. Very, very big result for them. Um, and it's an important result because it still puts the pressure on the Aurora, puts on Guelph now, as I'll discuss in a few seconds. Um, and it also cements the Oshawa Vikings' position of being in fourth position. They can't go any higher after today's result. And we'll look at the standings and we'll talk about the standings in a few moments as well. Guelph RFC versus Aurora Barbarians. And as you know, me heading into this one, I'm thinking Guelph is going to do the season. They're going to go back to their normal ways. Last year was a hiccup. They lost that one game. They're going to have an unbeaten season. That has finally came to an end. Guelph 27, the Aurora Barbarians 40 or yeah 46. So big result for Aurora. Oh, an away result as well, which is very important. And it also puts a lot of pressure on Guelph to not make a mistake again. So there's going to be a few questions being asked in these final two games. We'll look at the standings, as I said, to discuss a bit more in further detail. Now, Scarborough versus the Toronto Nomads. This kind of cements their positioning in terms of the standings as well. Scarborough 36, the Toronto Nomads 21. It's looking like they're fifth and sixth. And we'll look at the standings right now. Guelph sitting at the top of the table with 36 points. Roar Barbarians in at second with 33 points. The Bradford Harlequins then in third with 31 points. The Oshawa Vikings with 18 points. Scarborough Aces with 10 points. And then finally in sixth position, the Nomads with 1 point to show. So what I mean is that we only have 10 points left up for grabs for these teams. So with Oshawa Vikings being 18 points and Bradford Harlequins being 31, there really isn't any opportunity or possibility that they switch positions. It's pretty much fourth place cemented for the Oshawa Vikings. Um, it could mean that Scarborough and the Toronto Nomads still can move. I just think it's very, very unlikely. I would say it's a 95% chance that they stay in the positions they're in right now on the table. As I said, there is 10 points to grab. The Nomads could get 10 points and Scarborough Aces get 0 in the next two fixtures. Could put them into sixth place. Very, very unlikely. Scarborough Aces getting two wins. And the Oshawa Vikings not winning their next two games, very or not picking up any bonus points either. Very, very unlikely. So those positions are pretty cemented. Now the top half of the table, the excitement begins. I think the excitement opens up due to this loss by Guelph, because I think a lot of people would have expected straight away again, like, oh, this is going to be another unbeaten season. They're not gonna fall. They look positive. That's not what happened with Aurora winning that game. Very big thing for Aurora. They need essentially they need Bradford Harlequins to do them a favor and win against Guelph in their next matchup. I believe it's in the next round, or it could be the round after. I'm not 100% sure, but I can pop it up on the screen. I can do that. Yeah, it's the next round. They'll be playing against Guelph at home, which is where they done the damage last year. So that would be a big one. If they can get the 5 points, it definitely would shake things up. Um, because Aurora would just essentially need to win the next two games. Hope that Guelph don't pick up any bonus points along the way, and we could see someone new at the head of the table. So very, very interesting stuff happening at the top of the table. As you said, the bottom of the table is pretty much cemented. As I said, it's drying up. There's a little bit of movement, but I don't think it's enough to move the position. But exciting stuff. Now we'll just have a quick look at what happened last year in terms of the standings. This is what we saw. So some teams have improved. The Scarborough Aces already on the improvement list. Nomads on the downside of things. Um, with the Scarborough Aces having two wins, of course. The Oshawa Vikings, they had 21 points at the end of the season. I think possibly they could have a bit more this time around. Um, we'll have to wait and see. And then the other three teams then, very, very competitive. Obviously, Guelph only losing that one game, still in their stride. So just nice to have a quick look at what happened last time out. Um, but now we look at the Owl Championship. We look at how the results happen for them. Did I get these predictions right? Because from a quick glance, I didn't get all of them right. Starting with the first one, Burlington Centaurs versus Belleville Bulldogs. I had Burlington to win this one due to the fact that one, they're at home. It's a bit of a journey for Belleville, and Burlington are they're quite the team in the west side of things. But no, unfortunately, it didn't go their way. There'll probably be questions asked about the results. But Burlington 5, Belleville Bulldogs 29. So big win for Belleville. Um, it's an important win for them because they are on the chase now. Do they have enough time to climb the ranks? I don't think so. I don't think they do. But we'll have a look at the standings in a second and go into further detail of what they need to do to get them out of the pickle that they're in. Now, Waterloo County versus Kingston Panthers. I went with Kingston Panthers. I said they've come up leaps and bounds, and I think they've done really well. Waterloo have said, no, we're spoiling the party. We are not doing this. We're taking the win at home, and they got the job done, 50 to 43. So you can imagine the amount of scoring in this game, the amount of excitement with all the tries down in Waterloo, home ground of Rogers Sports Field. Super, super exciting stuff. So I can imagine that game was a lot of fun to play, and I hope the people down there had an absolute fantastic time. Now, Toronto Scottish versus Peterborough Pagans. This one was an important one for Peterborough because they're sitting in third in the west or in the east. My apologies. They are on the hunt to get in those top two spots. They want to get in the playoffs. And this result definitely pushes them into a good position of getting into the playoffs. Toronto Scottish 0, Peterborough Pagans 72. So very, very big result for the Toronto Scottish. Or not the Toronto Scottish, my apology, for Peterborough Pagans. Um, but yeah, very big result. And we'll look at the standings and see what the picture paints right now. London St. George versus the Ottawa Irish. London St. George with 5 points at home. The Ottawa Irish with 53 points. So very, very big results there for them. Now, when we look at the standings, I say it every week, and I say it that the standings on the Rugby Ontario's website for showcasing the standings shows it as one table, but in fact, it's actually two tables. And I got confirmed at the weekend talking to a few individuals of what the actual layout of the land is looking like. And look, it can change from what I'm saying right now. I'm leaving it up to I possibly could change within the next couple of weeks. From my understanding is top two teams of the East and the West battle each other. For like top of the East will play the second team of the West, and vice versa. Play each other into a playoffs. playoff or the finals, winner of the finals goes and gets promotion to the Premiership. So I believe promotion's on the table. Um, so that's a big plus from what I'm hearing. It also means that demotion is on the table as well. We're doing the same as last year. So the bottom place team in each of the divisions, so East and West, will get the opportunity to play in a bracket to stay up. Um, and we saw how it went last year, where the both teams that did get demoted came back in. Um, so there's a small bit of um, there's a small bit of interest into the league now again for me because it was getting solidified by the individuals that were chatting to me about this. Now, as it stands, we're looking at the Ottawa Irish, Kingston Panthers, Peterborough Pagans, and Belleville Bulldogs as that East group. And as of right now, with 2 games left, Belleville Bulldogs are cemented in last place. So they're going to be looking at relegation. They're going to be looking at the brackets. The next 2 games do not matter. There's no way for them to get out of the bottom spot of the East. And is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think no team wants to be in this position where you have 2 games left and you don't have the points to claim the ranks. But I also think it's a positive thing for them to kind of experiment in these next 2 games, figure out what can make them win. I think at the weekend, um, showcase that they can win games when they want to win games. Um, so they're gonna have to figure themselves out. They got to be more competitive once they go into that knockout stage bracket, um, for demotion, and they need to come out on top. I think these are the next two games that they need to focus on in terms of doing something different, see what can work, and spicing it up because they've nothing to lose now at this stage. The faith is sealed. Um, and that's what it is for Belleville. Now for Peterborough and Kingston, there's still debate on who's going to come second, who's going to come third. So Kingston with 28 points, the Peterborough Pagans with 27, um, and the Ottawa Irish with 35 with a game in hand. So you'd expect the Ottawa Irish to finish on top of that group. Um, but yeah, between Kingston and Peterborough, it's really up to debate. There's only 1 point in it. Both teams will be looking for the opposition to lose, so the pressure's off in the next round. But I think we're in for a very good race. That's what I'm thinking. Then for the west side of things, we're looking at Waterloo, Burlington, London St. George, and Toronto Scottish. Now, it is cemented that Burlington and Waterloo have confirmed they are in the playoffs. They've cemented it. It's set in stone. So Waterloo with 27 points, Burlington 24. The only question mark is who's going to finish first. That's the only question mark for them. It does put the pressure off on these next 2 games for them. They can experiment and try different things to see what will work against the opposition that they could face. So Peterborough, Kingston, or the Ottawa Irish, depending on where they finish. Um, so they're going to be figuring that out. Obviously, you want to be in a final. Obviously, you want to be, um, in a good playoff bracket and giving yourself the best opportunity. Um, I think Waterloo, after the weekend's win, will want to top the group, play against Kingston Panthers, play them again, and have an absolute fantastic game for the round just before the playoffs, your semi-finals. So they'll be looking at that and be like, if we can get a good run with Kingston Panthers, put the pressure on us again, um, that'll be very good for us in terms of being in a mindset of like, this is how tough the competition is and this is the level we need to reach. Um, so that'll be the thing I'll be thinking in Waterloo's camp. I think Burlington. I don't know. I think they're gonna do something. They're gonna do something. They're gonna create some magic. What magic? I don't know, but they got 2 games to play around with. Now, the Toronto Scottish and London St. George. London St. George ahead with 1 point, but Toronto Scottish do have a game in hand. So that is still up to debate, really, on who's going to finish at the bottom. The game in hand that the Toronto Scottish have is against the Ottawa Irish. So it's a game that you wouldn't expect the Toronto Scottish to get points out of. Um, we may see a bonus point. If we see a bonus point, it's going to go to the head-to-head between London St. George and the Toronto Scottish. Um, but realistically, these two teams are still in the fight. The fight is still going on. So London St. George need to get two wins here to really put the pressure on Toronto Scottish in the exact same boat. They need to get three wins to secure their spot. Um, so it's up for debate. It's up for debate, but very, very interesting in terms of the standings, in terms of how the playoffs are going to go. I think being confirmed that at the weekend and meeting a lot of people about it and be like, yeah, this is happening, this is a promotion and stuff. Very, very exciting stuff. I do want to repeat that it could all change. It could change in a dime. It could change tomorrow. It could change when this episode airs, and this episode mightn't be relevant then. Um, but it's to me, I think it's the right way to go. I think it's exciting for teams to have the opportunity to promote, and when it's on the table, teams do tend to perform better when you know that there's something to promote themselves. Now, as I said, we were looking at the last year's standings for um the Premiership, so we're going to look at the Championship as well. We saw it last year, Ottawa Irish at the top spot, Peter Piggins in at second. Now, it does say that the Kingston Panthers are in third, but it was the head-to-head that switched those positions. So Belleville Bulldogs actually finished third, and Kingston Panthers in a fourth. So they had to play the playoff the demotion games last year. And yeah, so t some teams have upped their game. You look at Burlington Centers, for example, they've upped their game from last year, so they've done progressively better. Kingston Panthers is another one that's done progressively better. Um, and then you look at London St. George, you look at Toronto Scottish, not in the same shape that they were last year. But that's what it kind of paints. Just having a quick glance, looking back to see what the final picture looked like, and seeing the small changes of what happened. So interesting to kind of look at. Now we dive into the Premiership. This was the big one this weekend because there was so much at stake. Whoever was going to win games were going to put themselves in the top half of the table. I think that was pretty much secured. That if you were going to win, besides London St. George and Babby Beach, you had the opportunity to get in the top half of the table. And I think this weekend showed who the dogs are, who the top dogs are. I think we're going to see a similar picture at the end of the full season, in terms of positioning wise. But we'll look at that in just a second. So we're looking at the fixtures at right now. Burlington Centers against the Aurora Barbarians, 64 to 15. So really dominated that game at home. So very, very big results for them. London St. George versus Waterloo. This was one of the upsets of the weekend, due to the fact that I think a lot of us at that moment in time before this game had written off London St. George as competition. I think a lot of them had said, and I said it last week, I said teams are looking at it, they need to get a win soon because teams are looking at them now and thinking there's an easy 5 points. And you don't want to look like that at the halfway point of the season. That is the last time you want to be looked at because you know that they're going to be, it could be a positive thing, it could be a negative thing. Um, I'm just going to blow my nose. Oh, sorry about that. Um, but it could be a positive thing, it could be a negative thing, and it really, depends on what frame of mind is in it. Do you want to have the underdog story? Do you like being the underdog? I think they do. I think they do like the being underdog. Um, I think it's a very fighty club, in terms of just having that nature to kind of keep themselves going. We saw last year how dominant they were. And I do reminisce of last year. There's a bit of me that says that spirit of London St. George and that competitiveness and the way they won the league and is there. And I think this weekend's results showed it, which I'm pretty happy about. 37-31 wasn't a blowout win or anything like that, but it was a win, and that's kind of what they needed. They needed to get themselves into gear, show that hey, we've one win under our belt. We're at the halfway point. Let's try and double that. Let's try and triple that. Let's try and quadruple that. Let's get 7 wins in a row. Um, I hope that puts the fighting spirit in them. Um, but also, it was very important for Waterloo. They were sitting at sixth, just outside the kind of the group. So this loss definitely puts them in a slight step back. They're not entirely out of the woods. They're still within a one win to climb the ranks and stuff like that. But definitely a game they expected to win for themselves. Now, the Toronto Scottish versus Bama Beach. I was down at the game. I didn't get to see the entirety of the game. I got to see most of the game. Due to the fact that the heat got to me. The heat got to me. Um, and I wasn't feeling too well after the first half, and yeah, just didn't sit with me. So I couldn't stay around in that heat. But it was an absolute glorious day. And I'll talk a bit more about Sunnybrook Park and what I think of it as a facility and the how I'm getting there and all that later on in the show. But from a scoreline points, the Toronto Scottish 31, Miami Beach 26. This was a game that was hyped up about by everybody um, at the game. Because we had a few different games. We had a few TRU games on, which was really cool to meet some of those guys. Um, like the Bay Street Bigs, the Belleville Bulldogs. Obviously, the Buccaneers is what I'm wearing right now. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, it's an absolute blue jersey. And you got to check out my Instagram really to see how gorgeous it is, or check out the YouTube. Um, so, but regardless of that, there was a load of TRU teams there. And yeah, so everybody was like, "Oh, Toronto Scottish versus Bam Beach is gonna be a game to watch. It's gonna be the one to look at. The rivalry is so deep," and we did touch on it in our rivalries episode of the podcast, where we talked about the biggest rivalries across Canada, and this is one of them. This is one of them. So very very gritty game, very very back and forth. Toronto Scottish did take the lead early on. From what I remember, they were up 3-1 before I left in terms of like three tries scored. Um, because of the heat, Um, I don't remember if they kicked the conversions and all that jazz. But I just knew that they were in the lead before I left, and definitely a tighter result than what I was expecting, because the first half was very very dominant by the Scottish. Last but not least, the Crusaders versus Bradford Harlequins. I talked about this game. I believe I went for Bradford Harlequins due to the fact, or did I go for the Crusaders? I can't even remember, to be honest with you. And you can probably check it out on Instagram. But I did feel like this game was going to be competitive. The results don't really paint that picture. 55-14, Crusaders winning that one at home. Very, very big result for the Crusaders. It's also pointing at the possibility that Bradford Harlequins are losing their mojo. And I do know from sources at the weekend that were telling me that the Bradford Harlequins had a wedding a couple of weeks back when the Toronto Scottish played them, and a lot of their main squad were gone to that wedding. It was in, I believe, the Bahamas, was what I was told. So a lot of their players weren't there. Um, that was one of the excuses I got told, and that was by a Toronto Scottish individual. So that's what they said. Um, but I think after the last couple of results, we're kind of looking at it going, is that the reason? Is that the sole reason? Because it's been a different team as of recently. And I think this year isn't shaping up the same way it was last year for them. But when we look at the standings, Burlington Centaurs at the top, 28 points. They are comfortably in the lead. They have but not too far ahead, because the Toronto Scottish is sitting right behind them, 25 points in second. The Crusaders then are in third with 25 points. Aurora then in fourth with 20 points. Bradford Harlequins in fifth at 20 points. Waterloo, they did pick up the bonus point, but not enough. But they're on 19 points, so they're still in that kind of range of climbing the table. Um, and then Bammy Beach didn't get the win at the weekend, so that has slipped them up a small bit. Did get the bonus points there, so it has pushed them a small bit. But they're within six between Waterloo, so they still need to win two games to get ahead of the posse. London St. George winning that game, massive. They still need to win two games to get ahead of Bammy Beach. Or pick up the bonus points, but it's put them in a better position than what they were last weekend. Um, Heading into this. So super, super exciting stuff. We're still at the halfway point. There's still a lot to play. There's still a lot of movement to happen after the next round. Um, but when we look at the standings from last year, and I know we're halfway through, so these things could change. Waterloo was sitting at the top. They had only three losses at that stage. So we're seeing a different team from there. Bradford Harlequins again, a different team. Burlington have climbed up in the standings as of right now. The Toronto Scottish Aurora Barbarians teams that were finishing seventh and sixth, both climbing the ranks. Crusaders in the mix as well. So we're seeing a very different league this year. I think it's more competitive. Um, I think even last year was, even looking at some of the scores, like there's only some of those games, there's only a game in it, and it kind of changes the positioning of the standings. So very interesting to see how it's all playing out. I'm very excited about the Premiership this year. Um, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun so far. Now, last but not least, we're looking at the Championship. One of my favorites from so I think it's one of my favorite tournaments because there is the opportunity of promotion, there's the opportunity of demotion, um, and the teams are very hungry. They're very, very hungry. Starting off, Markham Irish versus the Niagara Wasps. Markham Irish 32, the Niagara Wasps 34. So the Wasps get the W. This is an important W to get for the Niagara Wasps. We'll look at the standings in a few moments, as you might have guessed. Um, they will be really delighted with that result, even if it's only a 2 point win. It's still very important. Bytown Blues winning against the Oshawa Vikings. This one, I think I had Bytown to win. I didn't think it was going to be that high of a scoring game. But yeah, big win for Bytown. 40 points on the board, against the Oshawa Vikings with 31. Now, Guelph versus Toronto Nomads. And when you see this fixture, a little fun note, when I got told Guelph and the Nomads and I was told the scoreline, I didn't react because in my head, I had it confused with Guelph and the Nomads in the Owl. So when I got told Guelph and the Nomads and the scoreline's 94-7, I thought, oh yeah, that's in the Owl. That's an Owl fixture. And I went, oh yeah, are we surprised? Like, because I wasn't surprised. Turns out it was the men's, and I am surprised. Um, Even though they're on similar scales, like Guelph is definitely fighting for the top spot. Toronto Nomads still struggling is probably the best word to use there. But it's also the amount of points that Guelph scored. Another one of those 100 point games as well. Is it's just crazy, crazy. And then we had the game of the weekend, Ajax Wanderers versus Peter Pagans. This was the one to decide who was going to be top of the table at the weekend, or at, halfway point. And Ajax showed up. They said, "Yeah, we're going to win at home, 57-27." So they continue their winning streak. Um, so very, very important for them. Ajax with 35 points at the top of the table. Peterborough Pagans with 27. Bytown Blues with 26. Guelph with 26. The Oshawa Vikings in at fifth with 17 points. Niagara Wasps with 10 points in sixth. Seventh place Markham Irish with 9 points. And then the Toronto Nomads at the bottom with one. So what is it painting? What needs to be done? I think I think you gotta be super delighted if you're an Ajax fan. I think this first half of the season is just showing up the things that they've done behind the scenes. have worked massively for them. I know that they got new individuals on board, very, very talented individuals. Has that been the contributing factor? Um, they've come on leaps and bounds, and it's really, really cool to see. Um, So yeah, Peter Pig is sitting in second. They got to be pretty happy with themselves. They put themselves in a very good position. It's still very much a race between second and fourth right now, due to the fact there's only 1 point between the three teams. Um, and it's really going to be the head-to-heads between those three teams that's going to define where they're going to line up in terms of positioning. Um, any of those teams have been fantastic. You can't blame them. They've won more games than they lost. The Oshawa Vikings, they're kind of getting themselves into a similar position as what they are in the women's side of things. Not to say they're set in stone right now. We still have 7 games ahead. There's still 35 points on the board. Still a lot to play for. A lot of things can change. But I think right now they're in a spot right now where they're stuck in fifth. And even if they win a game, they're still in fifth, and if they lose a game, they're still in fifth. So next fixture is really just they do have a buffer zone that way, um, because Niagara Wasps are right behind them. They got 10 points. They can only gain 5 points max in a game, so it does put them in a little buffer zone. Um, from the way the playoffs go, they'll be playing someone in the Premiership, as we've discussed the idea of the 16 team one. Obviously, you want to be further up the table because you're going to meet someone similar to your caliber, or on a weaker scale. Um, but yeah, they're kind of cementing themselves in this position of fifth right now, and I think they need to figure themselves out, um, or just keep doing what they're doing. I mean, it's not the worst position to be in. Niagara versus Markham. Both teams 10 and 9 points. So these two teams could very much change after the next round, depending if one wins, one loses, all that sort of stuff. Um, but yeah, very, very, very interesting. It's interesting to see as well, and we'll look at the standings from last year, the changes as well from the league. And then the Toronto Nomads at the bottom. I don't know what needs to be done. I don't know if it's a player thing. I don't know if it's management. I don't know what's going on in the Nomads camp overall, because we're seeing it in the women's game as well. I know they're in the Premiership, and it's a different ball game than being in the Championship, but I think there's something going on, and it needs to be addressed sooner than later. Now, when we look at the standings last year, and we got to disregard London St. George in this one because they're not here in the league, but Peterborough Pagans sitting in second. Markham Irish was in third last year, and we seen them in at seventh, second to the bottom. Um, so that's very, very concerning in that sense. Um, and they did have a very impressive start to the season as well. I remember Markham being so strong in the early parts of the season last year. And then it was kind of those final games of the season where it started to blow away on them. Bytown Blues sitting in at fourth. They're currently sitting at a third, so that they're in the position that I think they should be in. Niagara Wasps, sitting in at sixth, were fifth last year. I think they kind of got their momentum later on in the season. Um, they did get their 1 or 2 wins in the early half of the season, but I feel like they got their momentum in the second half of the season. Ajax Wanderers, as we see here, sixth place. They're top of the table right now. So the changes they've made are impressive. We don't have to worry about Barry. We don't have to worry about Sarnia. But the Nomads, they were seventh. They were just outside the bracket, because of that draw they had, last kick of the game. So they got very lucky to stay up in the championship. It's looking like the picture is being painted for them. I think they still have time. There's still 7 games. There's still 35 points on the board to take. But I think time is of the essence for the Nomads, and they need to get into gear. I think this weekend it should be all about looking at squad, looking at what we need to do. Look at their previous games because they've played everybody now, and say, this is what we need to focus on. This is what we need to get rid of. So that is essentially how the standings are going. And I gotta say, I'm super, super excited about it. Uh, so super, super excited about it. I think it'll be interesting to see how the second half of the season goes for the Marshall side teams, both in the Marshall Premiership and the Championship. Um, do we think we're going to see the same picture as what we saw last year? I think the picture has been changed. Um, so I think it's a bit more unpredictable, but I think it's very entertaining nonetheless. Now, on to Sunnybrook. As I touched on in a small bit, we saw the Scottish games. They were a lot of fun, but I also got to see the Toronto Buccaneers versus Belleville Bulldogs. Left at the very end of that game. As I said, under the weather, got the heat exhaustion, which was not fun. Um, but I did have a great day out. I met a gentleman who said you gotta check on your teammates. So I got this hat. It's by Violent Gentlemen, and they're a I believe a charity organization uh tailored to talk about men's mental health, talking about checking on your teammates, about uh whatever's happening, whatever's happening behind the scenes that you should check on your teammates and that we should have the conversation to talk about what's going on upstairs, what's going on in the background. Um because you're not alone. Um you're not alone in what's going on. People can relate, and if you just individuals just check on their teammate, um, and see how things are going because behind closed doors, anything could be happening. Now, this is really generous. They gave me a hat. They gave me a t-shirt as well. But they also said that if you need help, you just call the number on the back, which is 988. I'm just showing it up on the screen. Um, Really, really cool hat. Really cool for the guys to give it to me. They're a big name in the hockey world, so some of you might know it from the hockey world. Um, but I think it's a very important message to men out there in general, just to talk about our feelings. I think the world is a very complex place, and sometimes we can't process it by ourselves, and we need each other, and especially in sports. Um, we got great communities, great teams, great people, and I think you know we need to reach out and help each other. So just wanted to let people know on that, um, because I felt it was very important, and especially the individual that gave it to me. I can't remember your name. Uh, Probably the heat exhaustion took it away from me, but really, really cool, and very important. I think it's something that we should be keeping people aware of, and that the support is out there for you regardless of what's going on. Um, but also we got this jersey from the Toronto Buccaneers. We also got a Pink Lady shirt. I had to get one, support breast cancer awareness, as well as helping breast cancer. Um, so it was a very important day out, and everybody was fantastic. Got to meet some amazing individuals from all walks of life in terms of, background and jobs. And oh, I do construction, I do this and do that. And it's interesting to see the community of people to come out. And it's such a big day, obviously, Pink Ladies Day. There's a bit of celebration, or not celebration, but a party element to it because we're bringing awareness and we're trying to raise funds and all that jazz. Um, but it's also the that like individuals from all walks of life come together and play the sport on the weekend, and it's really cool. It's really cool that we have such a great community here in Canada, and you know individuals that want to play very passionate rugby, play the best rugby they can play, want to get promotion, want to be the best. We have that all in the mix as well. So really cool day out. I had a blast for the parts that I remember. I feel like my memory is a bit fuzzy, but that's okay. Um, and yeah, thanks to all the guys that came out and said hello to the people who were chatting to me about different things, about the owl, about the Bradford Harlequins on their wedding and stuff like that. I wasn't aware of that, but you add that factor in. Um, and those little details just add to the picture of what's happening on the broader scale of things. Some small things add into the picture. So, but overall, Sunnybrook, I think as a field, and we'll give it a rating as a field. I don't know if you haven't been there, because I don't know if you've been there, but if you have been there, it is, and it was relatively warm. I don't think it was roasting, but it was warm. Um, it is there is no shade pretty much. So the canopies, if I'm not mistaken, the canopies, there was a lot of canopies out for the Toronto Buccaneers. Um, which was great, great occasion. Or great to have those. I think it was very smart of them. But I think visiting teams, I think I would suggest to even bring two. I know I know Bound Beach and Belleville Bulldogs and who's the other team? There's another team as well. They only brought one, and I was like with the team and stuff like that, and some of them are out in the sun and stuff like that, and you know you don't want your players to get heat exhaustion or not being able to perform or needing to be taken off early, all that sort of stuff. So I think definitely bring two. There's not that much coverage, depending on which field you're at as well. There is some tree lining over on the Toronto Scottish field. I don't know if that's how it actually breaks up or they switch over or whatever way it works. There is a small bit more coverage over on the Toronto Scottish side of things, but it's literally a field and there's maybe one or two trees around, and then you have your side forestry and stuff like that. So, um, it was interesting to get up to, because I'd never been to Sunnybrook Park, even all my time in Toronto. I just never had the chance to go up. Interesting, very, very busy park, very busy park. Again, car parking space and stuff like that. The facilities that way were really, we found it difficult. But there is parking spaces. Like there is, there's not just drive up on a field or whatever. Um, so it's interesting. You have your cricket fields, you have your soccer fields. So there's a lot of sports going on. There's a lot of activity. So I think that builds to the buzz. I think that's kind of the way it is up there. Um, I think, obviously it'd be kind of cool to have some sort of building up there. I think the closest one was like a lodge that was a small bit down that had washrooms and stuff. But I think it would be cool to have like a building of some sorts that's like a center or like, a shop or something like that. Like something that within the cricket community and the soccer community and the rugby community. I'm not too sure if there's another few communities up there in terms of fields and stuff like that. But from all the area, they were the three main ones that there should be nearly a facility up there, unless I missed it, unless I wasn't aware of it. Um, that that you can you know get yourself a sandwich, get yourself a bar. It doesn't have to be alcohol, is what I'm saying. But um, I think there should be something along that lines up there. Especially with the weather. I think the weather definitely was my contributing factor. But overall, I think Sunnybrook is a really cool field. Um, do I think a McCormick Cup will be hosted there anytime soon? I don't think so, just because of the busyness of the park and individuals getting parking space and stuff like that. So I don't think it'll happen there. But I think overall, a really cool pitch. Really cool group of guys that I got to meet on both the Scottishes team, both the Buccaneers, the Belleville Bulldog lads, um, the Miami Beach lads, saying hello to them again. I've met them on several occasions. So a lot of things to be absolutely happy about. But yeah, that is it. That is the end of the show for today. If you haven't done so already, subscribe or follow on the Spotify. You know what to do. Add a review, comment on the comment section if there's something that you're kind of like, Sean, what did you mean by this? Or I didn't understand this. Or if you have questions, like just ask the questions, because I'll get you an answer for whatever questions you have. Even if I don't know the answer, I will try and hunt it down. Um, but also we are going to be uh I'm going to be in Ottawa this weekend, so I'm going to be up in that direction. So maybe I might see a few rugby heads that direction. Who knows? It's really going to be up in the air. But also that there's no rugby this weekend, so I'm not going to be seeing a game. But maybe I might bump into someone in Ottawa that knows who I am. Maybe. Who knows? That'd be pretty cool. Um, but it's always so cool to meet people who recognize me, which is really cool. Really cool. I really do appreciate it. I don't take it for granted. Do really appreciate the sport. Do appreciate people liking, commenting, sharing, and all that jazz. Um, and getting involved in the conversation, getting chatting about rugby. It needs to be the forefront of the scene. And yeah. But until next time. Oh, hold on. One more thing before I go. Do check my link tree. Do check the link in my bio. We are, you can use the discount code SR Radio. It's on the link tree link in my bio. Use that discount code. You get 15% off of Tight 5 apparel. And over the weekend, they were the clothing that was like really slick, really cool. Um, that I was wearing down at the games, and it kept me cool. And I was very fortunate that my head was covered. I didn't burn on my head at all. I only burnt on my arms at the weekend, and even then, it wasn't too severe. You can't, you know, nothing too crazy. So very, very cool gear, but they also have very, very cool clothing. I've worn some of the stuff on the show. Last week I wore some of it. So if you're looking for some cool rugby stuff that you want to wear on a night out, if you want to wear at a game that you think is going to be helping you keep yourself covered and all that jazz, do check out Type 5 Apparel. 15% off. I know that the hat that I was wearing at the weekend as well as the Hawaiian shirt is on sale right now. So you get an extra discount on that. So do check that out. Just wanted to let you know. I don't do this to promote a great brand, which it is. But I do it because I think you deserve some fantastic stuff. And I think we should be showcasing some of the cool things that are happening. And Type 5 Apparel is definitely moving in the right direction for the community in Canada. And I think, you know, gotta support it. So, um, and if there is any other small businesses and stuff like that that are in the rugby community trying to do rugby things or want to promote things and all that sort of stuff, don't be afraid to reach out. You have all my socials. If you got here, you do. It's all on my link tree. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. But until next time, until the next episode, until we get chatting again and we talk about the league, because I'm telling you, next weekend we're going to see a different picture being painted. We're going to make predictions. Um, and get excited again for rugby. So until next time, I'm Sean Ryan Radio, the radio man, the radio guy, the interview guy for rugby, uh the rugby social media guy, the Instagram guy, the celebrity. It's what I got told at the weekend. Guy, the guy on the phone. Until then, I'm Sean Ryan. See you in the next one.